Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are taking a look at the new SH Figuarts Dragon Ball Z PICCOLO, the Proud Namekian, which is the new version of Piccolo, which I predicted not that long ago was going to be a thing, and then they announced it, and here it is. It's a thing. And you guys know, Piccolo's my favorite Dragon Ball character, well, not short of. I guess I like Vegeta a whole bunch too, but Piccolo is kind of like the go-to. Anyway, it's a very different figure than the original one. We're gonna do some comparing, although it's not altogether helpful. They're very different, and I don't think you're gonna really consider buying the old one compared to this one. No matter what you don't like about this one, I don't think that's gonna be an issue, but we'll see. There's a lot to talk about here, so let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. Alrighty, this guy stands just about 6.5 inches tall, which makes him pretty close to 16.5 centimeters. And before we get into the meat and taters of the review, we have to do a question of the day. Another very simple question for you guys, they usually are with Dragon Ball. Which is your favorite Dragon Ball character other than Goku? For those of you that like Goku, you can't pick him, you have to pick a different one. I know a lot of you are going to pick Goku. Mine is obviously Piccolo. Alright, it's only obvious because I already said it. Alright, so let's talk about this. My biggest gripe with this original release for Mr. Piccolo is that he didn't have anywhere near the mass that he needed to have. He has a very small chest, no back. It just didn't have the right meatiness to him. And obviously it's a very dated looking figure by today's standards, but that wasn't an issue at the time, obviously. So this one has a much bigger chest, better anatomy in that regard. But here we have another problem. Kind of like what they did for King Piccolo, the bad guy version, he doesn't really have any shoulders. He's got a really, really big chest, which is fine. He's supposed to have a big chest. And a lot of the time, he's drawn very buff. And then some of the time, he's drawn fairly slim. They seem to have done two different things. He's got the slim arms with a very buff chest. This size chest doesn't really line up with this size shoulder. And at some angles, you won't notice it. But if you're just looking straight at him, he looks like he's not put together properly. His head is probably too big, at least the top half of it. We'll get to the face accuracy in a minute. But the trunk of his body, including his legs, because obviously he has the big poopy pants on, is fairly thick, but then his arms are still very small relative to that. It does create kind of a weird look when he's not wearing his cape. They didn't put any of the shoulder sleeves on here, which is a good thing in one regard, but in another, it makes his shoulders look even smaller, so that's an issue. Alright, we'll get back to the comparison though. Height-wise, they're very similar. He's slightly, ever so slightly taller, and that will depend on how you have them posed, of course. But you can see the arms are actually a little bit thicker relative to the body on the old version. At least the biceps are. Shoulders probably too. Yet the other one had a much smaller chest, and this one has a much bigger chest, so you have some issues there. As far as height comparison goes, with scaling with Goku, that's pretty much accurate. Now I was doing a little bit of thinking, and I guess the other one was fairly accurate too. He just wasn't bulky enough. This is about right for size comparison. Goku's hair typically goes up to the bottom of Piccolo's turban, or whatever you want to call that, and that's about right. So this is pretty close, especially for SH Figuarts standards where they tend to skew things to middle. That's pretty darn close to the scaling we should have, so no issues with that. It's just the weird, finally big chest like buff looking Piccolo and then little arms connected to it does look a little bit strange. Other things that don't look great about this guy, he's very shiny. His pants are very shiny. His upper clothing is a little bit shiny. His chest is fairly not. His arms are like half and half. The pink is good, the green is not. He's way too shiny overall. Doesn't look good. We do have a fair amount of shading on him. Oh wait, we don't. We only have a little bit in the blue here. And there's some on the cape, which we'll get to. But they didn't do the line work on his pink stuff. We just have the red and the pink. And that's it. And then lastly, as far as the aesthetic goes for the things that I don't like, his face... Alright, I'm gonna just... The lips should not be red like that. It looks weird. It should definitely be black. But even then, even if the lips weren't red, the face is not right. He has way too much cheek. Like lower jowls. He's got a poofy cheeks, no cheekbone up here. And the way they did his eyebrows, they're nowhere near as pronounced enough. His top of his head is too big. His eyes are too close together. It doesn't look good. Now, some of the heads look all right, but they're still not particularly good. Like this, that looks more like a Cyberman than it does Piccolo. It's just not great. And we'll talk about those a little bit more as we do the accessories. That's not to say this one's any better. This one was very soft as well, but at the time it matched the other SH Figuarts, and it was whatever, it was fine. This is like halfway better, but then it's still really not right. This looks like a bad fan sculpt. It doesn't look like what Piccolo should look like from Bandai. So that's definitely disappointing. Otherwise, I guess you could say his hips are really big. I know that he's got like a belt on and poofy pants, but the way it's done, it doesn't really look like a poof. It just looks like he has really wide hips. He's just kind of awkward looking, and the only saving grace for him overall is the cape hides a lot of these issues, and he looks really cool. Like, it's definitely a better overall look for him with the cape on. It matches the animation fairly accurately, but we definitely have a lot of issues with this figure. It's very disappointing. Yeah, I don't know. I like the musculature. The way they did the chest is good. I just wish it brought it all together a little bit more. Yeah, there's a lot wrong with this, unfortunately. It's very disappointing. And then they didn't paint even the lines in his boots. So it feels in a lot of ways like a step backwards from the other release. Like, this is the Comic-Con version, but still, look at how it's not shiny. How they did the black lines in the boots. They're shading on the green. They did the line work on the pink. It's in a lot of ways a lot better. Very disappointing. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the cape briefly. I love the sculpt work for the top half. They did a really good job with that. They did some gray shading. Really no issues with that. The bottom half, same thing for the most part, other than I don't like these multi-part capes. This one's okay, but I don't know how many people actually pose the capes with multi-parts, because it just looks like crap when you do. So I don't know, it's fine. I don't have anything against it as a whole, but I don't like the articulation. I think I'd rather just have a better sculpt. That's me personally. You guys can let me know how you feel. It definitely looks better than the old cape having the green shading, even though the shading itself is really nice. I don't like the green, but yeah, it's better than the old cape, I'd say. So all in all, it's better than the old figure, but there's a lot wrong with it still. It's very disappointing, especially since we're not likely to get another version of this. I guess they could do some kind of exclusive where he's in the lighter purple, I guess, and has the yellow arm pads, but who knows. So aesthetically speaking, this guy's only going to get a 6 out of 10. He looks a lot better with the cape on, no doubt. I guess I could pop it on for you, even though you already saw that and you'll see it again. But it's definitely lacking overall. It's nowhere near what I was hoping it was going to be. But luckily the cape does hide. I'm not going to put the back part on all the way, but just so that you get an idea. Like, you can see that definitely has a much better anime accurate look, and the cape does a lot to kind of soften all of those various issues that I talked about, but it's still definitely not what it could have been, which is kind of a bummer. Alright, as far as accessories go, I guess you could count the cape, so we'll do that. And then we do have the Turbine Head, which can work with a neutral face, and it can also work with an angry face, which is a very nice touch. I think they did a good job with that angry face, by the way, very good. And then of course we do have a neutral head without the turban, and then we have two veiny heads, one where he's just looking off to the side, and then one where he is yelling. The head sculpts just don't look like Piccolo to me. They're technically sculpted okay, outside of being an accurate Piccolo sculpt. These don't look like him. These look like generic Dragon Ball characters that happen to have green bald heads and antennae. It just doesn't look like Piccolo to me. You guys let me know how you think about it, but I don't think it does. Alright, we do also have the interchangeable arms, the folded arms. I didn't have any trouble swapping mine out, but then again, I didn't have any trouble with that for Jiren either, and a lot of people did, so I guess be careful and lucky. But they are actually all in one piece this time, not separate pieces, and they're painted very nicely, so I'm okay with that. We have one interchangeable torn off or cut off arm, so that's a cool thing. You can recreate that scene. And then as far as hands go, we have the two fist hands that come on them in the package, one instant transmission hand, two kind of clenchy hands, and then two wide open hands. Then we also have two little stand pieces for the cape, one for using with it on him, and then one for like if he's thrown the cape, which he has done in the show, like in every episode. Not really, but you know what I mean. And that's it. No effect part, again, not even to use with his instant transmission hand, so that is definitely kind of a bummer to me. Also, no stand. So, I personally don't mind figures that don't come with stands because I'd rather not pay for them if I don't want them, but when you have a figure which has a specific purpose for a stand, like the thrown cape, for instance, or the fact that he floats all the time, like the cross-legged floating pose, that's a thing, right? I think it is. He doesn't have it, so that's kind of a bummer. So accessories, I'll still give it an 8. We got a bunch, but not all the ones I think probably a lot of people would have wanted. So that's kind of a bummer. Plus the heads don't look right. They just don't look like him. Very disappointing. Alright, as far as articulation goes, maybe that'll save this guy. As you already saw, we have a ball hinge for the neck again. It's like they keep making it right on half the figures and then doing it wrong on the other half. That's just not a great joint. It'll work, but it takes a whole lot more work to make it work. So, yeah, I mean, it's not a problem, but it could be so much better if it actually was the right thing, which is a double ball peg. You'll get plenty of range out of it, though, not counting when the cape is on. The neck is also on a ball peg, and that moves around pretty well. There are some directions that it doesn't really go, but it'll be fine. For the shoulders, we have a big butterfly joint, which I know some of you are all about, but as you can see, it really just dislocates the arm. It's so egregious in its lack of care for the sculpt. It is just not... I don't know what they were thinking other than... I don't know what they were thinking. They could have just sculpted... Like, it's a whole new sculpt. The whole thing is new. Why didn't they just account for things like the crossed arms better than to just have this terribly ugly butterfly joint? Yeah, you can do that, but it doesn't even look good from the front. That's terrible. All of you guys who are begging everybody to do butterfly joints need to realize that 95% of the time they don't look good, if they're functional at all, and even then they don't look good, or they just don't function, and they look okay. Like, it's just not a good design. But anyway, the arm is connected to with a ball peg, and then you have your ball hinge, so arms work pretty well. No real issues there. That's fine as far as the arms themselves go. We're not going to talk about the butterfly joint anymore. Bicep swivel is fine. Double jointed elbow gives him just better than 90 degrees. Definitely wouldn't have minded a little bit more. I think they could do that. I mean, it's not like it's a very crazy sculpt, but it's okay. It'll do. And then the wrists are on ball hinges, which work just fine. For the torso, we have a hinge and a ball peg. It allows him to lean forward a little bit, lean back a little bit, but they didn't even try to make it look good. Why is that like that? If you just do the right kind of joints, you can get so much better range. Like, we're already using ball pegs in here, but they didn't do a good job with it. It's so ugly. You know what? Look at this. Here's one of my prototypes. I can use this as a quick example. A couple of well-placed double ball pegs, or a couple of ball pegs, a double ball peg, can afford so much better range. Oh, it needs to be lubricated. There we go. That'll work. You can lean them back so much farther forward. Side to side is better. I mean, you just get so much more range out of a joint that works properly. No crazy hinges, nothing expensive. Just a simple double ball peg in there. And this is only a prototype. And look at all that range. And then look at this. A high-end Bandai Japan figure. There shouldn't be a comparison between my homemade prototype that one guy developed in his free time as opposed to a Bandai Japan high-end SH Figuarts figure. And really there's not, because this is terrible. This diaphragm joint is awful. You do get a ball peg down here at the waist, and it goes forward and back. I'm not 100% sure it's actually a ball peg. It could just be a hinge with a peg at the top, which I guess would still be a ball peg, but you get your swivel. The belt is floaty. Leaning is minimal. Yeah, this figure is disappointing me more and more the more I look at it, and I was bummed out. I'm bummed out because I was so excited for it. Oh man. Alright, let's try the hips. Maybe the hips are really good. Going out to the side. Yeah, that works really nice. It's a slightly different design than we've seen in the past. Technically, it's the same kind of engineering, but they did it a little bit differently. This is closer to how they did the SH Figuarts Chun-Li. It works. That's fine. Really good range, obviously. Going forward and back. No issues there. Yeah, no problems with the hips being functional. They're good. Definitely a little hippie, because realistically a guy's hips wouldn't poof out right there. Even with poofy pants, they would hang straight and kind of just flare naturally, but with the cape on you don't notice it. Thigh swivel is okay. Double jointed knee, they did do as much as they could to hide it in the back, which is good, but God almighty, he is shiny. Goodness. It's all of that, and we just barely break 90 degrees. Come on, Bandai, what are you doing? This is all brand new sculpt. Why doesn't it work better? It had to be designed from scratch, and it doesn't work. 90 degrees, just barely over 90 degrees on a figure like this is not acceptable. There's no reason for it. That's a huge bummer. And then for the ankles, it looks like we're using a double ball peg, which obviously just lets the ankle move around. It's done well enough because he's got the cuff on the boot, so it hides the joint. So that's fine, but it's still pretty limited. A ball hinge would have been perfect on this release because it would have been hidden in the boot, but it's not. And then a toe hinge that's way too soft, that doesn't serve any purpose. Yeah, this is very disappointing. It's been like, what was it? Was it 2011 that the first Piccolo came out? I don't remember. Is there a stamp on him? Oh, this is SDCC. Anyway, it's been a while. And they've done some great things. Like the Goku now make the old Goku look ridiculous. And while this is better in a lot of ways than the old one, it's nowhere near as good as it should have been for being what it is. I don't know, maybe they figured people were going to buy it no matter what, or people weren't going to buy it so they didn't want, but they spent the money anyway. That's what I don't get. If you're investing in a brand new set of molds, make the figure work. There's no reason for it to not work. Very disappointing. All right, so for the articulation for this guy, 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10. It's just not very good. The butterfly joint is very poorly implemented. The diaphragm joint doesn't work at all and is ugly. The hips are good. The knees are bad. The ankles are average. The arms are average. Nothing about this guy is good except for the hip range. I mean, articulation-wise, it's exceptionally good except for the hip range. So, very much a bummer for me. I'm curious what you guys think. I know a lot of you guys like Piccolo. We've talked about it in other Piccolo reviews and Dragon Ball reviews. But this is, I'm happy enough with it because it's going to look good if I stand it in a hero pose with the cape. But it's nowhere near what it should be. I mean, even just the fact that it's shiny. Why is it so freaking shiny? Whatever. All right, final verdict on this guy. Overall, I'm going to give it only a 6 out of 10. There's too much wrong with it. There's a lot of good stuff, but it's far overshadowed by the bad stuff, and that's the way it is. I'm very disappointed. I'm as disappointed as you guys are, probably, if not more. But definitely a lot of problems on this release. Man, such a shame. All right, guys, that's it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, I've reviewed every Dragon Ball SH Figuarts release up to this point. The new Jiren will be reviewed in like a day. Maybe not from when you're watching it, but whatever. And I'm not going to review Kid Chi-Chi because that's creepy and weird. But otherwise, I've reviewed all of them, so check out that playlist. And I've reviewed thousands of other things, so check out all of that stuff. So come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.